You're being selfish, Brooke. My mother's voice cracked across the granite countertops of our Charlotte home like a whip. Your sister has a dream, and you're just sitting on that money like some miser. I gripped the farmhouse sink, trying to steady myself. Suddenly, the kitchen wasn't a kitchen. It was a courtroom, and I was the defendant. My name is Brooke Carter, and at 32, I was the villain for refusing to empty my hard-earned savings to bankroll my younger sister Madison's latest golden opportunity. It's not like that, I said, keeping my tone calm. I've worked for years for that money. I have plans. Plans? Madison laughed, tossing her perfect blonde hair like she was auditioning for reality TV. What plans? Your little analytics job in Denver? This is a real chance. My wine lounge will put us on the map. Do you know how many influencers I could bring in? My father, usually the diplomat, finally spoke. Brooke, be reasonable. Your sister has vision. She's always had that spark. Then came the dagger. You're steady, stable. You can always save more. Those words cut deeper than they knew. In my family, steady was code for boring, forgettable. I have $140,000 saved, I said quietly. Madison wanted all of it, every penny. It's an investment, she shot back. For once in your life, you'd be a partner. Think big, Brooke. But all I could think about were the years I'd spent clipping coupons, skipping vacations, working 2 jobs through grad school, while Madison flitted from one failed venture to the next, each one bailed out by mom and dad. No, I said finally, sharp as glass. I'm sorry, but I won't do it. The explosion came instantly. The silence lasted half a second before my mother erupted. How can you be so cruel? After everything, my father added, his tone full of accusation. I knew you were jealous of me, Madison spat, smirking like she'd won. But this? This is low. Even for you, I looked at them. Really looked. My mother, who'd spent my entire childhood urging me to be more like your sister. My father, who never once asked about the projects that consumed my nights, yet proudly attended every one of Madison's doomed grand openings. And Madison, magnetic, reckless Madison, who never worked a steady job but always got everything she wanted. I'm not jealous, I said, voice calm now. I'm done. I turned and walked out of the kitchen, ignoring the chorus of accusations. Upstairs in my old bedroom, I grabbed the leather duffel I'd stashed days ago. I'd seen this coming. Madison had been dropping hints for weeks. The pattern was always the same: charm, pressure, guilt trip. Brooke Carter, don't you dare walk out that door, my mother shouted as I descended the stairs. I paused at the bottom, turned, and looked at them one last time. You know what's funny? I said, smiling faintly. None of you ever asked what my plans were for that money. Not once. Because your plans probably involve spreadsheets and boredom, Madison sneered. Some of us actually want to make something of ourselves. I laughed softly, not bitter this time, just pity. Goodbye. Behind me came the familiar soundtrack, my mother's sobs, my father's heavy sigh, Madison's furious shouting. But as I slid into my car and pulled out of the driveway, I felt weightless. Because tomorrow, I was boarding a flight to Boston Logan, then connecting to Zurich. And none of them knew. Tomorrow, I'd step onto a plane bound for Zurich, where a new life waited. But tonight, I drove away from Charlotte with my phone buzzing nonstop. Calls, texts, voicemails, it was all the same. I powered it off, let them rage, let them guilt. I was finished being the family ATM. For years, I'd sacrificed. A cramped studio in Denver during grad school, 2 jobs just to pay rent, skipped vacations, coupon clipping well into my 20s. Every dollar in my savings account was built from grit. Meanwhile, Madison hopped from scheme to scheme. First, the boutique that collapsed in 4 months. Then, the yoga studio shuttered in 8 weeks. Then, the event company that booked exactly 1 wedding. Our cousins. Each time, Mom and Dad bailed her out. Each time, they swore this time was different. But I knew better. This time, they expected me to bankroll her. Instead, I'd chosen myself. In less than 48 hours, I'd start as head of strategy at Alpine Renewables, a leading clean energy firm. The offer I'd fought for through sleepless nights and brutal interviews. The salary was life-changing, the work impactful. And the office? A glass tower overlooking Lake Zurich. As the plane ascended, Charlotte disappeared beneath the clouds. I felt the weight fall away. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the steady, boring daughter. I was free. 3 months blurred by like a dream. Glass-walled offices, global summits, projects that mattered. My apartment overlooked Lake Zurich, the water shimmering like liquid silver each morning. The city hummed with trams instead of family drama. The first few weeks, my phone overflowed with voicemails. Mom swung between hysterical, "How could you abandon us?" and manipulative, "Your father's blood pressure is spiking because of your selfishness." Madison alternated between fury, "You've ruined everything," and bargaining, "Just half the money, Brooke, even 20%. I let every call go to voicemail. At Alpine, I was thriving. Within 2 months, I was leading negotiations for a €1.8 billion project to modernize Europe's energy grids. For the first time, my ideas weren't dismissed as boring. They were recognized as visionary.
Then came the email. "Brooke, have you seen this?" my CEO asked, handing me a press release. The headline made me freeze. Forbes names Brooke Carter one of the top 30 innovators in energy. It included an invitation to speak at the World Economic Forum in Davos. That night, I sipped espresso on my balcony, the city lights flickering across the lake. My phone buzzed with a US number I hadn't seen in months. My father. "Brooke," he said, voice small. We saw the Forbes article." "Yes," I answered evenly. "Why didn't you tell us? About Zurich? About everything?" "You never asked, Dad," I said. "You were too busy calling me selfish for not funding Madison's wine bar." Silence. Then, quietly, the bar fell through. The building had legal issues. It was a disaster. For the first time, I felt no guilt, just freedom. My father's voice was quieter than I remembered. The bar, it collapsed. Legal mess. Investors walked. Madison's devastated. I closed my eyes, listening to the hum of Zurich below. For the first time in decades, I felt nothing. No obligation, no guilt. "Dad," I said, steady as stone. "When I needed you to notice me, you were too busy bankrolling Madison. When I told you about my plans, you laughed. And now you want me to pick up the pieces?" "No." On the line, I heard my mother's voice crack. "Your sister's been struggling since you left. Maybe if you just talk to her." "No, Mom, I'm not her backup plan anymore." I hung up. For the first time in years, I felt light. That night, I drafted strategy notes for the Davos panel. My presentation would cover how decentralized energy grids could cut Europe's carbon footprint by 40%. It was ambitious, technical, but game-changing. Exactly the kind of work I'd been told was boring. When the panel ended days later, applause thundered through the conference hall. Reporters swarmed me. Ministers shook my hand. My phone buzzed endlessly with new interview requests. And there it was, my name, my face, plastered across CNBC, Bloomberg, and Forbes again. The boring sister, standing in front of world leaders. Weeks passed. My life was a blur of meetings, flights, and summits. Each day, I felt more certain I'd built something real, on my own terms. Then the messages started again. 8 voicemails in one day. The first, from Mom. "Darling, you were brilliant at Davos. The Hendersons saw you on TV and called us. We couldn't be prouder." The second, from Dad. "Princess, the country club is buzzing about your work. Even the university dean called. Why didn't you tell us?" Relatives I hadn't heard from in years suddenly wanted to reconnect, but the last voicemail stopped me cold. Madison. "Brooke, I saw your speech. You looked incredible. Listen, I've been thinking. We could team up. I have this eco-friendly beauty brand idea, and with your connections, delete." I didn't hesitate.
That evening, standing on my balcony overlooking Lake Zurich, I realized something profound. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even hurt. I was free. At Alpine, my role kept growing. I was spearheading negotiations for a €2 billion project that would transform Europe's energy infrastructure. My strategies were setting global standards. Then Henrik, our CEO, knocked on my glass office door. "Funny story," he said, grinning. "Your sister called yesterday. Asked if we had any executive openings. Claimed she had extensive business experience." I laughed out loud. "What did you tell her?" "That we're fully staffed, with qualified strategists." She hadn't taken it well. Later, Henrik handed me an envelope. "By the way, the UN Climate Summit invited you as keynote speaker. Honorarium included. Makes most CEOs jealous." I stared at the number. Unreal.
You earned it, Brooke. Your work's changing the game. Though I suspect your family might be disappointed to know you'll spend this money expanding renewable projects instead of funding another boutique. My phone buzzed, again. Mom this time. "Darling, we're thinking of visiting Zurich. Madison has wonderful ideas to share with you. Your WEF talk could really help her brand." I typed a quick reply. "Sorry, can't host. Too busy finalizing the International Green Energy Accord. Feel free to watch my Bloomberg interview next week. Phone off, smile on." Some things never change, but I had. The cameras were already rolling when I entered the conference hall in Geneva. "Miss Carter," the producer called. "Can you explain what inspired you to pursue renewable energy?" I thought of every dinner where I'd been told to be more like Madison, every milestone ignored. Every time steady had been their way of saying forgettable. I smiled into the lens. I learned early that the most powerful changes aren't always the loudest. Sometimes, progress is steady, deliberate work that quietly reshapes the world. The producer's grin told me I'd nailed it. The summit was electric. Ministers and CEOs debated, but all eyes kept returning to the Carter woman from Charlotte who had once been boring. My strategies were reshaping European infrastructure, my signature sealing deals governments had dreamed about for decades. When it ended, applause echoed like thunder. My phone buzzed nonstop in my bag. I didn't check it. My real circle, colleagues, innovators, allies, was in this room. That evening, Zurich sparkled like a constellation outside my balcony. I pulled out my phone. 8 new voicemails. "Mom, darling, you were brilliant. We must come visit." "Dad, Princess, everyone's proud. The dean even called." "Cousins and uncles, saw you on Bloomberg. Amazing." And finally, Madison. "Brooke, I know I said things, but maybe we could work together. I've got this sustainable skincare line idea with your platform. Delete." I laughed softly. Not bitterly, just with relief. For years, my worth had been measured by what I could give. Now it was measured by what I'd built. The insults, the doubts, the guilt trips, they had no power anymore. 6 months after Davos, I stood in my corner office overlooking Lake Zurich, reviewing final documents for the €2 billion Green Energy Accord. Henrik entered, beaming. "Ready for more fame? Bloomberg wants you again. And the UN just confirmed. They're flying you to New York for the Climate Summit keynote." I exhaled slowly, smiling. Let's do it. My phone buzzed on the desk. Another message from home. This time I didn't even open it. Because the truth was simple. I wasn't the Carter family's safety net anymore. I wasn't the boring sister. I wasn't jealous or selfish. I was thriving. Because I'd walked away. For years my family had tried to convince me steady meant weak. But steady built this life. Steady forged a career that mattered. Steady made me unstoppable. I looked out over Lake Zurich, the city glowing in golden light, and whispered to myself, I'm free. And for the first time, I truly was.